Did you know that Jungkook's shares were stolen and people were fraudulently using his name? Who was that person and what happened with that person? Jungkook had a video about it, and you will be surprised to know what Jungkook did with that person. In 2024, when Jungkook was serving in the military, every day of his life was spent in uniform. Training, discipline, and duty were his focus. He temporarily said goodbye to his fans, staying away from social media, cameras, and the spotlight. He was serving his country, but during this time, there was someone else using his name. Silently, without a sound, someone had tainted his reputation. Someone had misused his identity and transferred 33,500 shares of HYBE company. The total value of these shares was around $12 million. At first, no one could understand how this was possible. Everyone said, Jungkook is busy with his duty. How could he be involved in such a thing? But when the investigation started, the truth slowly began to unravel. It was discovered that this could only be the work of an insider or a highly professional hacker. Without internal access, this kind of sensitive information leak was impossible. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the person behind this was someone who understood the system inside out. The company, HYBE, was in shock. How could such a breach happen under their noses? When the shares were illegally transferred, no one initially understood how it could have happened. But as the investigation moved forward, it became clear that this could only be the work of an insider. After that, Jungkook considered this his biggest battle of his life. When Jungkook first found out about this, it was a massive shock. How could someone misuse his name for their own benefit? It wasn't just money at stake here. It was his trust, his identity, everything that made him who he was. His name was once an example of respect and trust in the world. Now, it was tainted by this scam. The question remained, how could someone use my name like this? He began questioning himself, then talked to those around him, but his heart wouldn't let him ignore it. He realized that it wasn't just his name that was stolen, but his very identity. The world might have forgotten, but for him, the situation was personal. There were nights when Jungkook lay awake, wondering, how could someone do this? He didn't just want his name to be cleared. He wanted to make sure no one else could be hurt in the same way. It wasn't just a legal battle. It was a struggle for his identity. He wanted to stand up for himself, not just as an artist, but as a person who valued his reputation. When he learned that 500 shares had been sold to a third party, it felt like his whole world had turned upside down. This wasn't just a theft, it was a violation of his trust. How could someone manipulate his name for their own personal gain? That was a question he couldn't stop asking. But at that moment, he made a decision. He wouldn't stay silent. Jungkook filed a case, and his decision to stand up for what was right shocked the world. It was a fight not just for money, but for his integrity. The first court case turned the entire K-pop world upside down. Everyone understood that this wasn't just about Jungkook anymore. It was about everyone's right to protect their name and reputation. Jungkook showed the world that standing up for your rights is the most important thing. His fight was for his dignity, for the truth. In 2025, Jungkook won the case, and the shares were returned to him. But the real criminal was still unknown. This victory felt incomplete. Yes, he had won the shares back, but who had done this? The person who had misused his name was still out there. Everyone started asking, who was this person? The one who sold the shares? Was it an insider? Was it someone who knew Jungkook personally? Or was it just someone who was willing to do anything for money? The media reported that Jungkook's name had been misused, but no one thought about the emotional toll it had taken on him. At night, when he was alone, wondering why someone would do this to him, why his own name was used to deceive others, he knew he had to confront this and show the world his true face. He had to prove that his name wasn't just a label. It was a story, a personal journey, and he needed to take control of it once again. And then one day, Jungkook found the courage to speak up. He said, "I stayed silent because when your own name is used by someone else, you become quiet. You wait for the time when you can return to who you really are." That line became deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. That was his victory, regaining his name, his identity, and showing the world that Jungkook wasn't just a name, he was a person. And through his struggle, people learned that reclaiming your name is not just about winning. It's about understanding your true self and letting the world know who you really are.